Jennifer, so you feel you've worked with Sam long enough, he's given you the camera this evening, huh?
Mr. Chair, I've got 6 p.m. I'll call it to order.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We have 6 present, and I believe Dr. Faison is on WebEx. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. It's 6 o'clock on Monday night, not where you thought you'd probably be at this time of day. But thank you for being here. It's the most important thing we will do. Can we adopt the agenda? Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Paul, can you give us a safety briefing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll go over safety. This is a new room and facility for everyone, so in the event we need to leave the building for an emergency, we'll go back to the vestibule there by the elevators. There's a stairwell. Should that be blocked, there's one in the center here as well, but we'll take that one down. We'll have the pleasure of walking down, holding the handrail for the 19 floors. We'll gather there and be led over to Hemming Plaza as a place to gather outside. We have security here, Brandon and Brad. I'm going to call on you for 911 and security if necessary, and also for CPR. And that's really our safety briefing this evening.
Thank you. Can you brief us on the sunshine law and the records, public records, please, Jody?
Yes, sir. This is a special. Can you hear me okay through my microphone?
We're not getting any audio.
Can you hear me now? Is it working? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, multiple
Yes.
times. Over and over.
Over and over again. Can you hear me okay? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Everyone that's joined us via WebEx, we're going to pause. We're going through some technical issues with audio. Just please stand by. Thank you.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a publicly noticed special meeting that's allowed through the bylaws for the chair to call a special meeting. There is a provision within the bylaws on Article 5, Section 2, that does require 2 business day written notice to all the board members, but that provision can be waived based upon attendance at the meeting. And unless anyone has any issues, I would request that bylaw provision on the two business day written notice be waived at this time.
Would you like a motion to that effect?
Can I get a motion?
Can we have a motion to waive?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The notice went out late on Friday for this meeting. I had communications with all of the board members about their attendance at this meeting. It's a very important meeting that to be had in a very quick turnaround time to last week's meeting. So it has been duly noticed. We've got a quorum present in the room. The governor did not extend the order to allow web-based technology to be used for local government meetings in the sunshine. So I appreciate everybody's attendance here. So we do have a quorum present in the room. We do have Dr. Faison attending virtually through the WebEx technology. It is a hybrid notice that's allowed that the public can can view and participate via technology, but it's just we have to have a quorum present in the room, which we do have.
Should we vote on the waiver?
Yes, sir.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you. Keep me straight. Thanks.
Thank you. For once.
And so minutes will be taken of this meeting. Again, it's a very important meeting to identify the candidate for the CEO position.
Okay. We'll go into the board consideration items. Jody, would you outline the CEO selection process, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, October 27th, the JEA Board met and conducted interviews of 3 candidates for the CEO Managing Director position. Prior to that meeting, each board member also had the opportunity to have one-on-one discussions with each of the candidates. During the last week's in-person interviews, a series of 11 questions were asked of the interviewees and scored by the individual board members. After the 3 candidates were interviewed at the board meeting, the board members indicated that all 3 candidates were qualified and had the opportunity to speak about the qualifications and the attributes of each of the candidates. The board also discussed getting references of the 3 candidates from Carl Mykoff and to be shared with each of the members. Upon getting reference feedback, each of the board members were asked to provide an overall assessment of the candidates in order of their first, second, and third ranking, and to complete an interview feedback form ranking the responses to the 11 interview questions on a competency scale of 5 to 1, with a rating of 5 being the highest level demonstrated and a 1 being unsatisfactory. Time was provided to the members to rank and score the interviews, and their forms were all sent to me as of Thursday of last week. As part of the process that was detailed in the interview meeting, that if a preferred candidate did not emerge due to a tie or differences in the scoring, a special meeting would be held to arrive at a final selection via publicly noticed voting meeting, and that's where we're here today. And when I read out the results from the scoring sheets and the rankings, it'll be evident as to the purpose of this meeting. And after I read out the rankings and there's a discussion of the board, there will be a vote as to who the offer should be made for the CEO Managing Director. Does anyone have any questions about the process of where we're at today at this time? If not, I'll go ahead and go to the next agenda item, which is the results from that meeting of last week. Last Tuesday, the board was asked to provide an overall assessment of the 3 candidates in order of their first, second, and third ranking. The results of the overall assessments are as follows. Chair Baker had Jay Stowe first, Morgan O'Brien second, and John Hairston third. Bobby Stein had Jay Stowe first, Morgan O'Brien second, and John Hairston third. Marty Lanahan had an overall assessment of Jay Stowe first, John Hairston second, and Morgan O'Brien third. Joe DiSalvo had the overall assessment of Jay Stowe first, Morgan O'Brien second, and John Hairston third. Dr. Zachary Faison had John Hairston first, Morgan O'Brien second, and Jay Stowe third. Dr. Leon Haley had John Hairston first, Morgan O'Brien second, and Jay Stowe third. And Tom Van Osdal had Morgan O'Brien first, John Hairston second, and Jay Stowe third. The other evaluation that was done of the candidates was the overall scoring of the 11 questions. And I'm just going to give the total and the average for each candidate based upon each of the board members. For John Hairston, I'm going to read straight across the 7 board member total score. For John Hairston, Baker scored him at 44, Stein 40, Lanahan 50, DiSalvo 43, Faison 47, Haley 51, and Van Osdale 43, with a total of 318 points with an average score of 45.43. For Morgan O'Brien, Baker had 52, Stein 46, Lanahan 45, DiSalvo 52, Faison 47, Haley 45, and Van Osdol 53, with a total of 340 points, or an average score of 48.57. For Jay Stowe, Baker had the interview score of 49, Stein 50, Lanahan 52, DiSalvo 52, Faison 42, Haley 44, and Van Osdol 42, with a total score of 331, with an average of 47.29. Based on these results, we had 4 board members that had assessed a total assessment for Jay Stowe in first place, with 3 of the board members having him in third. And Morgan O'Brien's score of 340 was 9 points higher than Stowe. And so for those reasons, it wasn't a clear indicator as to who this board had selected to make the offer for the CEO, managing director. So with that, Mr. Chair, I think we'll open it up for dialogue and discussion with the board.
Great. I think it's very important that we talk about what our evaluation is, and I think it's clear to everybody, but I just want to get it on the record. We each had 2 interviews with each of the candidates. Then we ranked the interviews, and then we were asked to rank the candidates, not the interviews. And in ranking the candidates, you consider the experience of the candidate, their poise, their background, their people skills, their leadership qualities, and so forth. And so it's not surprising that you might have a different vote with the interview scores as opposed to the overall candidates. I would hope that tonight we could come together and get a consensus vote. Normally, I would tell you, I think it's almost imperative that we come together and get a consensus vote. In this case, I don't feel that strongly. And the reason I feel that way is we have 3 incredibly strong candidates, and it should not be an insult to anybody or a surprise to anybody that different people would like different aspects about different candidates. And it's just a case of personal preference. But I think we were all very clear that any one of the 3 would be great. And so I'd love to get a consensus tonight, but we're going to get a candidate. And I hope we can do it. This board has been incredible as far as pulling together. And what I'd like to do, Bobby made the great suggestion, I thought, that let's dig deeper into the references. As he said, they'll never look better than they do in their interview. Let's see if we can find out more background on them. And so Carl Wyckoff spent the weekend working on that, going back to the people he talked to, documenting it, and we all received his comments, and I hope you all have had a chance to read them this afternoon. I thought they were enlightening. They were all good, but some were better than others. And so what I would suggest that we do is just starting going around the room. I would like each one of you to say who after the weekend, after reading the references, after sleeping on it, who is your first choice, and why? And we, take as long as you want, but try to hit the high points. Bobby?
Again, John, you make a good point. It's all these are great qualified candidates. Looking through this, trying to make a decision is who has the experience of all of these facets of the business that we're in. And that's where I came to Jay. I felt that he understood all facets. Carl gave me some very good thoughts of, his experience, his reputation, and more importantly, people he's worked with and for. So that's why I would say, Jay. Then the next person I would say, if not Jay, was Morgan. I mean, not only is his experience, very deep, but the references came back very, very strong from all aspects, not only from the people he worked with, but from the community. And then John, the concern I had with John is he's got great leadership skills, but not the experience that the other two have. So that's where I would, my thoughts are on these candidates.
Leon?
Thank you, and I agree, incredibly difficult decision, and I was struggling with ranking them at all, right? Because, that you're saying somebody's first, second, and third, and I think they're all incredibly capable and would do a fine job. I picked John Hairston first. I have not changed from that standpoint. I thought he actually did have the experience necessary, but I was really struck by his poise and his comfort with answering questions and being very methodical in his approach. And, given some of the challenges that we've had as an organization, I thought his measured approach and thoughtfulness would be really important. He struck me as calm and had the right demeanor. I picked Morgan O'Brien second, also a lot of experience, 2 different organizations. What I liked about Morgan, and probably why I picked him a little bit ahead of Jay, was just his experience in the rest of the community, being very active in the Pittsburgh environment and, participating in a number of leadership positions throughout the city and really having a nice presence for the city, which I also think would be helpful for the organization. And he was probably one of the few people who answered that question around diversity. Now, he was asked it, but he still was able to answer a nice question. And Jay, I thought he was a star as well. It was a really tough decision. I thought he had the experience, also had the personality and the demeanor, had the experience. I liked that the board structure in Huntsville was very similar to where we were. So I thought he would do fine. But so, when you're saying you're first, second, and third, you're off by just, a microcosm, quite frankly. But that's my thought.
Thank you. Tom?
Joe?
Tom?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything Bobby and Leon have said, I agree with. The big differentiator for me with Jay Stowe was he really did his homework on Jacksonville, not just JEA, but the community, et cetera. And I know Morgan probably has good situation awareness as well as John Hairston, but that, again, a close race here, but that put me over the edge in favor of Jay Stowe. So Jay, I maintain, is still my #1 vote. And then it's all 3 are fantastic. I just give Morgan O'Brien a little bit of an edge because of he has more experience at that level compared to John Hairston.
Tom?
Yes, sir. I'll take maybe just a moment more than my colleagues have, but I was the one who ranked Morgan O'Brien first, and the reasons are several. The way that I heard him speak about his deep understanding of who utility professionals are, and through sort of a visceral connection and respect, as well as his significant experience in the industry. He talks a lot about not only knowing who utility professionals are, but a deep desire to empower them and to connect them with the organization's mission and purpose, something bigger than themselves. His community involvement is significant in my view, and my recollection from the meeting last week was that someone had spoken with Eric Mann, who knew of him in the Pittsburgh market, and I too have a good friend and colleague in the Pittsburgh market that works at the academic institution that Mr. O'Brien graduated from in the area, and so I had a chance to talk to him, and they actually had involvement working together with Mr. O'Brien, leading the philanthropic efforts for, as it turns out, a new basketball arena at that institution. But his judgment and assessment of his character and his engagement were impeccable. I really liked Mr. O'Brien's sensitivity and focus on social justice and equity, and what he had tried to do within his organization relative to creating jobs and creating pathways to advancement, et cetera, for individuals throughout the community. I felt like he was focused on not creating solutions looking for a problem, but focus on solving customers' problems. He talked about that with through technological solutions, et cetera, but really focused on falling in love with the problem and then finding a solution to help the customer. He's got strong rating agency experience, and the way that he described the way that he traversed the Bloomberg opportunity issue investigation in that community, and the way that they really owned that and took responsibility for, look, we're polluting the air. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to clean the air, and really connecting then employees with the greater purpose of part of what we're doing here is cleaning the air that we all breathe. And so those things really resonated with me. And then reading his references, they only reinforce that. The way that he was described as having the highest ethics, a team builder, an innovator, and an effective anticipator. Those things all really struck me. And one individual described him as a great strategic thinker. The other two candidates are stellar as well. Mr. Hairston, I really liked his, again, compliance and corporate responsibility experience, his focus on safety, and his clear loyalty to his organization, being with Bonneville for 30 years. I just felt I ranked Mr. O'Brien slightly higher because of experience in the CEO seat and direct experience with rating agency reporting. And then Mr. Stowe, again, great civil engineering, technical background, really polished, articulate, diplomatic individual. But again, when I went through and compared the references again today, just reading how folks reflected on their experience of the two of them, it once again differentiated Mr. O'Brien. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Marty?
So I'm a numbers person, and I'm fascinated that we were so close. I mean, the bands were so close on all of the scores. 3 amazing candidates. Again, hats off to the selection committee and this process. I have consistently, through all of the phases, had the same order, which is a little surprising to me. And my order started with Jay, primarily because he has extensive experience in both water and electric. I think that the water experience was favorable to me, having experience with some of the infrastructure issues that we have with our water systems today, and certainly investments into the future. He does have CEO experience, a great deal of CEO and community experience. And I thought he was a student not only of Jacksonville, but of the JEA. As I understand it from one of his answers, he has consulted with Paul in the past around things around customer service scores. So he's been a student of the JEA for a long time. My very close second, and when I say very close, is John. And the concern I had around John, which made me pick Jay throughout the entire process, was that he has been a number 2. He hasn't, in my mind, been a number 1, so there's no CEO experience. If I were the new CEO for the JEA, the first person I would call, because you're recruiting a senior leadership team, candidly, is John to run electric. And I think in doing so, John would get some experience, and a gap that I saw on his electric experience was the retail consumer client. I didn't get the sense that he had a great deal of retail consumer experience. And Morgan was consistently my third, and it was candidly more than anything. It wasn't the things that you said, Tom. I think that was exactly right. But situationally, I had concerns that he has so much private sector experience, and we have just made a commitment to this community and to the rank and file of the JEA that we are not for sale. And it's just a situational thing for me. I just thought there's a trust issue if we say that and then we hire somebody who has sold 2 companies. And I was thinking about the rank and file when I made the 1, 2, and 3.
Zachary?
Yeah, well, I certainly echo the sentiments that I think everyone else has shared with regard to the overall quality of all three of the candidates. Let me say that up front. I had Mr. Hairston as my preferred choice. In large part, I actually thought it was a strength that he had not sat in the CEO seat. And I know that may sound weird, but I kind of feel like everyone's not a CEO until they are one. But he did have, I think, a great wealth of experience as a COO, a CAO, and his 29 years at Bonneville said to me that he's come through all the levels. So to me, I thought he was just very, very, very much so prepared to step into the CEO role. He was very articulate, very passionate. I also was really intrigued by some of his answers with regard to new lines of business opportunity for JEA. I thought he was very, very on target there, and was just really impressed with him on the whole, especially when I did get to look at the references as well. It reiterated for me what I gleaned from the interview as well as his presentation throughout the process. With regard to Mr. O'Brien, I thought he was incredibly knowledgeable as well. I also was very moved by his work in the community in the Pittsburgh area. I can say that I did have some hesitancy with regard to his overwhelming private experience, and I think on 2 occasions has been a part of a sale, and certainly that was something that did give me some hesitation with regard to, you look at that contextually with what we've been through here in Jacksonville, and our commitment to our public utility. Mr. Stowe, I mean, I thought he was very knowledgeable as well. Certainly has a lot of experience. What didn't resonate for me was to me a commitment to the community. I did kind of hear him say that he had done some due diligence in terms of Jacksonville, but I just didn't get the same sense that I got from Mr. O'Brien as well as Mr. Hairston with regard to the dynamics of Jacksonville and this community. So, again, strong candidates, all three of them, but those were my rankings and kind of where I still stand as of right now.
Thank you.
And John, excuse me, Chair, I just want to make sure that we all link arms and say, because I don't know where we're going next. But I know, I want to make sure that whatever the outcome is, that we all link arms and support whatever CEO we pick. And we make that decision today because understanding everybody has different rankings. I just need us all to be supportive of the CEO when they get here, whoever that may be, wherever we're going next.
No question about that.
Just wanted to say it.
I chose Jay first. I thought his experience as a CEO, experience as municipal power operator in all phases of our business was really the thing that carried the day. The fact that he came to Jacksonville, whether that showed that he cared about Jacksonville or that he was really interested in the job or just a pretty smart guy to make a move like that, all three are good. And that impressed me that he would take the time and effort to do that. Very close was Morgan O'Brien. And in fact, I would tell you all that if someone said we need a compromise candidate, I would say that the references that came in over the weekend made me very comfortable in voting for Morgan O'Brien if that's where we come to as a compromise, because I think he is he's energetic, he's smart, he's described as being hardworking, looking around corners, very good with his people. I worry about the perception of public power, just like you all do. I think 5 minutes with Morgan O'Brien, and that conversation's over. I think he can carry that day, and I think he's powerful enough to do it. I loved John. John is, it didn't come out. Apparently, he was a professional baseball player and an incredibly competitive guy, and yet he comes across as the most thoughtful, rational guy in the world. So I'm happy with any of them. But those were my choices. And so we are where we are. We haven't changed. Nobody's changed since we voted the other day. And I would ask, I'm just going to throw out, there are two ways we can go. One, we could ask for a vote, and it would appear that we would get a 4 to 2 to 1 vote. If we have to do that, that's what we have to do. I would throw out as a question to you all, and just have you all speak freely, is there a compromise that you're comfortable with that you think we could come together on? I say that might be Morgan O'Brien. Bobby, thoughts?
You know, again, John, I'm very comfortable with Jay and John and Morgan because I think the experience. I think we are going to, have issues with Morgan's private sector, but as you say, anybody that spends 5 minutes with him is going to overcome that situation. The references that came back on Morgan are fantastic. I mean, they come from people not only from the industry, but I talked to my brother who has a dear friend up in Pittsburgh who he met, who runs a big company there, asked him to be on his board after he got to know him. Said he's not just a great individual, but he's a great citizen of Pittsburgh, and he is a great executive. And then you get back to Jay, he does have the most experience in what we do. I think John is a great person. He's competitive, but he does not have, the experience that these other two do. I mean, he does not, he's not been in front of the rating agencies, and it's not to take anything away from him, but I think he's, Dr. Faison, what you say is him being a COO and not a CEO, is an advantage. I just, moving from Portland, there is risk here, and I would say the first two, you have less risk. And the other thing is some of these people that Paul brought back are going to be leaving, and the ability to fill these holes, I think Morgan and Jay would have the ability to fill these holes. So with that being said, I'd bring it back to you guys, but I think this is a difficult choice, and I think Jay, very competent, very thoughtful. I think the employees would feel very comfortable coming in. Morgan, I think, very capable, very competent. I think there's going to be some concerns, but I think, as you said, John, people feel very comfortable after they've spent time with him. He has a lot of the tools in the toolbox we need. So I think the two I would suggest that we think through of where we are Jay and Morgan. So I'd hand it back to you, John.
Leon?
My comment would be, we could, to your point, we could vote again and it'll probably land in the same fashion it is. And rather than compromise, which I don't think is actually a good word we really want to use for this important hire, I'd rather be more comfortable in leaving the results stand as they are. right? Which is to say, if 4 of us felt that Jay was the most appropriate person to leave this organization, and 2 felt it was John, and 1 felt it was Morgan, that to me is enough of a split that I would be comfortable with, kind of to Marty's point about standing behind each other. Because I don't think we're going to change each other's minds. I'm not sure we're going to feel better if it gets to 5 to 1 to 1 or something like that. I'd much rather say, this is what the vote was, this is what the board decided to do, we're comfortable with where it landed, rather than try and figure out where's the compromise candidate, per se.
Okay.
Just my thought.
You're shaking your head.
Yeah, no, Leon, well said. I just thinking the same thing, flat out, just thinking the same thing.
Other thoughts? I'll entertain a motion from the floor.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with Jay as our candidate.
Is there a second?
Second?
I hesitate to ask for further discussion, but I do want it. Thoughts, anybody?
I will say, I'm very supportive. Jay is a very experienced executive, as you say, on both sides of the utility. And insofar as my assessment still was that Morgan was the stronger candidate, I want to set the individual and the organization and the individuals that comprise the organization up for success. And if there's concern about Morgan's private experience, and that would cause any amount of disruption, no matter how insurmountable, any amount of disruption that may not be in the best interest of the employees and the organization at this time. So I'm very supportive of the position that's been posited.
Just appreciative that we've gone through this process, and again, that thank you, Dr. Haley, that we're all linking arms and we're going to make the most successful run at this, despite the fact that we had some differentials in our votes. It's almost impossible with these amazing candidates to have a unanimous number 1, number 2, or number 3.
Zachary, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I've just kind of been ruminating, thinking, and I think my thinking falls along the same lines, Leon. I think that it would probably be best if we move forward and took our votes in terms of where things are, and I certainly would just supporting whomever our CEO is, but yeah, I think that's probably the best way for us to move forward. As a point of clarity, though, I know there's a motion on the floor with regard to Jay. Are we going to make a motion for each candidate, or are we making? I'm just trying to understand the process in terms of. I know there's a motion on the floor for this.
The process is, if it's acceptable, Madam, is that I asked for a motion, and Jay was nominated and seconded, and I was expecting to go to a vote.
Yes, sir, and it would be my understanding if you got 4 affirmative votes for Mr. Stowe, that he would be your selected candidate to make an offer of the CEO position. And I don't believe you would need to go forward with doing any kind of a motion practice on behalf of the other 2 candidates.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So everybody raise their hand. It carries, and I can't see Zachary. What was your vote, Zachary?
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Did you vote for or against?
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Barely.
My vote was against.
A vote against. Okay, so we have 6-1. The motion carries. Jay Stowe is our nominee. It would be very helpful if we could get a second choice in the event that something breaks down in the negotiations. Would somebody make a motion of who would be the second?
I make a motion that Morgan O'Brien be the second choice.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I vote against.
Okay. We have a first and a second. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the way you guys have handled this and the way we've come together. We were going to get a great person no matter what, and you've just made it so much easier for him to come in and succeed, and I thank you very much. So we move on. The next discussion is a compensation discussion. We've received a recommendation in email today. I don't know if all of you have seen it from Paul.
And it's in the book. It's in the
Is it
front
in the
page,
book?
Front jacket of the book.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I could, we had, at the last meeting, voted for you to be able to negotiate the compensation and the other terms of a contract with the CEO. Because this board as a whole is the one that sets the compensation and the terms of the contract, we thought it best for the board to entertain your ability and my ability to go and make a specific compensation offer, or at least a range. And so that's why this discussion is here before the board now on the compensation element. I also shared with the board a draft of the employment contract. The employment contract, as we all know through the legislation that's been proposed by City Council, has a lot of provisions that have been added or going to be added. Again, it's just proposed language right now, but I've incorporated all the provisions that's being discussed and debated and will likely be approved in the charter changes by City Council into the agreement that I had forwarded. There's just two elements really to fill in the blank, is compensation, and the other is leave time. The leave time that had been in the old agreements was predicated on years of experience, and so the suggested time for leave is 4 weeks. And so I've that's another unknown besides compensation for this board to talk through the various elements in the agreement. And so I'm not sure if folks had an opportunity to look at the memo that Paul put together on the recommendation on the salary ranges, because the other thing that's from a compliance perspective that's in the current charter changes, I just want to read to you that all compensation terms shall be reasonable, customary, and similar to other public utilities comparable to JEA when taken into account JEA's territory area, employee workforce, and utility systems. And so that's one of the changes that's being authored through the legislative process for the charter changes. And so we've looked at, Angie's online as well, as Carl Mykoff, on setting salaries based upon other similarly situated utilities.
The recommendation is for a total package not to exceed $560,000. To begin at 454 and have a range up to 560. Paul's salary is 560. He has no bonus. He felt like, and I think this is something I'd like to get y'all's input on, he felt like it was disruptive in the community, especially in the midst of a recession, for public employees to receive a bonus. And so he chose to take half a loaf of his bonus and roll it into his salary and just not have a bonus. I'm inclined to have a bonus. I think when you've got a CEO, you want him to have some skin in the game, and there'll always be some people that'll gripe about it, but I'd rather do that than just give them a salary. But that's my opinion.
I agree with you, John.
One thing I would suggest is, and I'd like to have Carl talk about this, whether he thinks this range is competitive with like-kind utilities. Can you speak up to that, Carl, and say whether you think we're on the mark or too high or too low?
Carl, this is Landon from JEA. If you can hear me, your audio is muted on your side. Carl, we're still not able to receive you. The WebEx is unmuted, but we're not receiving any audio from your end.
Why don't we go to Angie?
Good afternoon, Chair Baker and other Board of Director members, as well as other attendees. I do feel that this particular salary range that's presented is equitable, and I feel that it is also one that would fit this position. The information that was presented as far as the compensation was concerned was based directly on salary data that we received from Towers Watson Willis, which is also a very renowned compensation consulting firm, as well as most recent information that we received from the Large Public Power Council, also known as the LPPC. We participate in their survey each year. Out of the 26 participants in LPPC, 21 of those organizations did report in their CEO salary information, which we considered. I did confer with Paul as well as Jody on that information and the validity of it. So I feel that that compensation range is one that is commensurate with the position itself. Also, this has also been verified with our compensation department. Pat Malis, who is our Director of Employee Services, conducts a salary survey every year, is updated frequently as we receive information from salary surveys. So once again, I feel that this information is valid and commensurate with the CEO level in JEA.
Thank you, Angie. Carl, did we get our technical difficulties fixed? Can you speak? Okay. I think Angie's comment, she has been in constant communication with Carl all weekend. I would assume they're locked at the hip. One question I have is, and I would ask it to you, Paul, the 560 is the same as your salary, and yet it's the top. And if you were to stay, I mean, if you were capable, if we could keep you to stay, you would be $15,000 higher than that in a month, because of the 3% escalation. Should we raise the top to 575?
I think that's a fair catch. I missed that, but in thinking that not focusing in on the contract, but there's generally a first of the year annual adjustment, has been for 2 decades now in CEO compensation.
So John, in your mind, what do you see the base and what do you see the bonus potential? And what's your?
My conversation with the guy would be that I think he would be smart not to push to have it at the top, and that we should talk through it. But I like the idea of a base of 500 or less with a 15% bonus. I think that works out to those numbers, to 575 very elegantly. But I think, you know, it would not be unreasonable for, if Jay were to say, look, I'm going to work as hard as I'm going to work no matter what, and I don't want to go through the political harangue of having a bonus. And if so, then he wouldn't get the full 15%, he'd get some percent of that.
So Jody, how much leeway can we give you and John to negotiate this? Because from where I'm, I feel comfortable with the two of you guys, and I just, what's allowable under?
Yeah, we really need to have a range of not to exceed. I mean, so one of the things is this board didn't authorize John to go off and offer millions of dollars to the CEO. He wouldn't do that anyway, but that's the reason we're having this conversation, is we really need to have at least a top end, and we need to let Jay Stowe know that it's really a top end. I don't want someone to come and ask for that. That's the problem with having these conversations on a public record and a public forum, but that's really where we're at. So if you could set some kind of a range and an upper number for us to be able to go back and try to get.
So John, what upper range would you feel comfortable with?
575.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that give John and Jody a range not to exceed 575 as a total package.
Chairman Baker, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
Carl.
Sorry, I switched audios and now through my cell phone. I am in lockstep with Angie in terms of what the market in public power salary. The thing that I think the board should be aware of is that the three other sectors, the rural cooperative and the investor-held utility, pay considerably more. So the risk that you have in the long term, and we have seen considerable movement from public power to the other sectors for that reason. So the risk that you have in being average within that public power sector is you start out behind the other two sectors when they are competing for the same talent.
It's a fair comment.
So I'll come back to giving Jody and John the ability to negotiate a contract not to exceed 575, and hopefully that, you can negotiate, the bonus potential you're looking for. So that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion?
I'm sorry, a question, Bobby. So 575, the upper limit for the range, including the compensation or not including compensation?
Including compensation.
Okay, got it.
The
Thank you.
total package.
Right.
And I'm having gone through lots of conversations about bonus plans and incentive plans earlier this year. I'm interested in what type of bonus plan this individual, that the CEO would be on, because that was a big issue, as you may recall, with our city council partners.
It would be exactly like the one we've always
The
had.
so the
where
one.
It's very measurable, and it hits the key performance indicators. Do you feel like they balk at that?
Can I respond? If you don't mind?
Well, and I think there was a statute that we relied on for that conversation, but can you remind me?
Right, so all the employees are under a pay-for-performance plan that this board has accepted, with the exception of the CEO, because the CEO is under contract. And the contract, that we've talked about base pay compensation, but there's also a provision in there that allows up to a 15% performance incentive, based on performance, and it's performance metrics that this board would have to set for the CEO. So those metrics have not been established, and it's an annual review every year, a public annual review of the CEO as to whether or not they've achieved the metrics, and whether or not what that percentage, it could be 10%, 12%, 13%. It may not even be the full 15% based on what metrics you set for the CEO.
Right, so we have not set the bonus.
No, we
plan
have not.
metrics.
If I can add, so next, the governance committee meeting will be our first discussion on those measures of effectiveness, and between that and then the CEO evaluation criteria, I think that'll clear up what those metrics are to be able to evaluate, do compensation, et cetera.
John, I think Paul had something.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, I want to say the 575, I think the intent here is to cover not necessarily total package, but this is base salary and any incentive compensation.
Correct.
Because in the contract, there are there's other remuneration there. So these are for those two items.
Yes,
in the
yes,
package.
yes.
Just for-
Yeah, but yes.
That's wonderful.
Clear. Thanks for bringing that up.
No, thank you, Paul.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hold on.
Okay, we've got it. Now, we have a contract that is you've seen. Are there any discussion about that, or is it generally acceptable to everyone to go with that, or something awfully close there too?
Jody, I think I got Carl. Carl, I see your hand raised. Do you wish to be recognized to speak?
Yes, please.
You may proceed. Thank you.
Speak up, Carl.
Chair Baker, what I might suggest for the board's consideration that an incentive plan for the CEO, much to what Paul observed, is a lightning rod. And you might be wiser in bringing in this individual with a higher base and at least for some period of time, no bonus, because it's going to be very difficult in a short term to identify the criteria on which a bonus is going to be determined. You can always at a later time implement a bonus if the performance warrants, but initially it might be less politically volatile to have the CEO on a bonus and raise the base.
Can I?
Yes.
Carl, I appreciate what you're saying, but I disagree. I think, coming in here politically or non-politically, if it's the right person, they'll be very comfortable saying that, I've got to achieve to get to my full compensation.
Well, I would agree with you in principle, Bobby. I think that I'm in favor of bonuses and incentives tied to performance because I think it's a better way to administer. I'm just thinking the political implications of having a bonus.
Well, I think we voted, unless we have a motion to recant. I think we are where we are. He may not want a bonus. And I would certainly honor that if that's the way he felt.
I think the key, Mr. Chair, is you have a range, you have a top end, and I think you and Jody can negotiate where you think the split actually lands. So to Carl's point, you can make the base a little higher and keep the bonus smaller, so it's there, and then we can adjust that as needed.
Yeah, I do too.
Leon, that's a great point.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just one more additional comment, on the compensation aspect, again, it's got to be warranted, and if we have the right vehicles in place, which are the correct measures of effectiveness and performance of justice, et cetera, if those are being met and it's warranted, fine. If it's not, then obviously, on the compensation side, it won't be awarded. So I don't want to, it's not like we're guaranteeing the bonus compensation. If it's earned and warranted appropriately, and I think we have a good vehicle to judge that, at least on an annual basis, we're okay with that.
I would agree with that. The key for me is that they are objective, quantitative, data-driven metrics, and they speak for themselves. There's no subjectivity.
Okay. Can we go to the contract? Has anybody got any objections to the draft of the contract?
I don't. I think it's,
Obviously, we might change the bonus. I think 4 weeks would be blew max as far as the time off. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go any higher than that. Can we get a motion to approve the general form of that contract?
I'll make a motion to approve the general form of the contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have anything else to cover, Madam?
I believe we've done yeoman's work here, Mr. Chair.
Well, I want to thank Carl for making this so hard. It's a great compliment to his organization, and it's an even greater compliment to JEA and the opportunity that people see to come here. And it's a pleasure to have this, and you know, hopefully we won't have to go through this again anytime soon, but I know two people I'd go looking for if we ever did. So I thank you all so much. As a board, this was better than I could have ever dreamt that we could have handled it. You all are terrific and gracious, and I'm grateful to work with you. If there's nothing more, we're adjourned.
I'll just add one quick thing is Angie, Carl, Jody, thank you. And I leave with, you know, the guy that's made this so easy, Paul, you know, to follow you and John, it's made the job a lot easier to find the type of candidate that we did. And I agree with what Marty said is, you know, coming together and making sure this person, whoever that is very welcome in this community, and we make sure that we can do everything we can that make that person successful. So John, thank you for your leadership. And Paul, thanks for everything that you've done to make this job easier, to find the type of candidate we have.
I think we all would agree.
Agreed.
Agree.
This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.